Hi, this is Justin Paperny, Thursday, December 4th. Want to jump right into the dreaded Department of Justice press release. I received a call from a prospect this morning and I was beginning to write a blog and then said, you know what, I'm going to do a video blog and have one of my two press releases posted throughout the whole video. And for some background, this is my press release after pleading guilty in 2007. I was a stockbroker who worked at Bear Stearns and UBS. Several years into my career, made some bad decisions on behalf of a hedge fund manager, and as a result, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. I served 18 months. Prior to my guilty plea, I asked the U.S. attorney to not issue a press release. He chuckled and said, I have to issue a release. It's a deterrent, and that's the way it goes. You shouldn't have crossed the line and committed fraud. So I too, like many of you watching, have had to endure this press release, and I put in some strategies that have helped me overcome it. So back to the call this morning, this prospect said, I'll tell you my name and my case, but you cannot Google my name. And I said, okay, I'm busy. I won't Google your case if you don't want me to. Why? He said, well, if you Google it, you could potentially keep moving my Department of Justice press release back up to the top, and it's very tough to read. It's embarrassing. I'm ashamed, and I just don't want anyone to know. I said, okay. Besides not wanting me to Google your name or having others Google your name, what are some other strategies you're putting in place to overcome this release, or some of the fallout from this? And he said, well, my lawyer and I are meeting with a PR firm, and where they're going to be writing some releases that talk about all the good I've done throughout my life, and I think it's a good strategy, and I've done a lot of good things. And so I said, okay, well, what's that going to run you? He said, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 grand, but what's 10 or 20 grand when you're talking about your life and your good name? And I said, well, how many of those releases are you preparing to write? He said, well, I'm not a professional writer. I wouldn't know what to write. What am I going to write? That's what I'm paying these people to do. He asked my opinion. I told him that hiring a PR firm, like I foolishly once did, is like flushing money down the toilet, and nothing is going to remove that Department of Justice press release that will be there as long as we live, and it will be there for your kids and grandkids to see as well. So rather than pretending it's not there and hiring others to write about other things we may have done in our life, perhaps it's important to take a different course of action, to approach this press release differently, and do so in a way where you can inspire, grow, and motivate your network to want to help you. So he said, okay, I'm listening. And I said, okay, may I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, tell me about your story. You've already pled. It's out on the internet. Open up. Tell me what happened. And he couldn't. He really struggled to tell me what happened, why, some of the pressures he felt, the opportunities that he gave into. Certainly didn't talk about the victims he created. And I'm not even talking about the victims of his crime, which technically is the taxpayer. It's his family, it's his kids, his children, who are suffering more than him. He's really struggling to talk about it. So I admire him for calling me, for wanting to find out if there are things that he could be doing, but it has to be beyond just writing a check and hiring PR firms, or me for that matter. It requires work and a deliberate approach to overcoming this press release and the obstacles that await him. And I told him, as I tell all of you who might be in struggle watching, initially you have to begin telling your story. And if you've pled, or if evidence of guilt is clear, telling your story in a way that inspires people. I accept responsibility. I made a mistake. I didn't understand how crossing the line would influence the rest of my life. I want to become better. I need your help. That takes practice, reading, writing, thinking, introspection. And once you've done that, once you begin to master it, as I often do with my clients, you can then form a list. Form a list of people that you need back into your network. Form a list of people that are currently in your network. And then do what I did. Take this press release. Take your press release. Call someone. Ask them to meet for a cup of coffee, dinner, lunch, whatever. Put the release in their hand. Sam, this is serious. I made a mistake. I've crossed the line and I'm enduring some terrible repercussions for my family and me, but I want to become stronger. Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what my next steps are. And when I did that, when my clients do that, the common response from people with whom they're meeting is, I'm so thankful you told me. I had an idea this was going on. I didn't know if I could call you. I heard about it from a friend. I saw you at dinner last week. I didn't know if I can come up and say hello. I didn't know if you were talking about this. I'm so thankful that you told me. I know this has got to be brutal and hard. Are you okay? What can I do? That's a lot of my clients aren't used to hearing that response. I wasn't. I remember driving to these meetings thinking I was going to like the worst experience of my lifetime. Instead, because of how I explained my story, the mistakes I made, and how I wanted to emerge stronger, it inspired people. They said, I applaud you for owning it. How can I help you? So, for those of you watching, it's always going to be there. And frankly, I believe having a Department of Justice press release has many benefits because it forces you to talk about it, to own your story, to grow your network by admitting you crossed the line. There are so many benefits to it, to be transparent, to think differently. The majority of people trapped in the system want to pretend it didn't happen, dodge, deflect, blame. That's how most of the men spend their days in prison. Those that succeed take a different course of action. They own it, they talk about it. It doesn't have to be through a blog like I do, but you talk about it within your network because that network is like, it has to be nurtured. It is a big deal, and people want to hear from you what happened, and you have to get over the cliched, it wasn't me, it was somebody else's fault. I got swept into this, which is what too many white-collar offenders say. And you can say it, and it may make you feel better as you say it, as this prospect did this morning, but it's not going to let you emerge stronger. It's not going to help you better connect with your family and your kids, and it's not going to help you make big money again, which many of you want to make and often ask me, how can I make money again? Forget about big money, how can I make money again, period. One way with this Department of Justice press release is to own it, to talk about it, remove that elephant in the room. Let's transition to my second release, which was issued after I was sentenced in February of 2008. And at the end of it, it says that I was sentenced to 18 months in prison for facilitating this fraud, and I was ordered to pay criminal restitution, which I continue to pay to this day. By the time of this first release in 2007 and my second release in 2008, I had told my story to so many people, so many different ways, that by the time this release came out, I was looking forward to it because I had a strategy in place to overcome it. And then when I surrendered to prison 2 months later in April of 2008, I continued that strategy of owning it, of improving, of growing my network from the inside. So let me close with a couple of final thoughts. Many of you watching this video are wonderful people. Little League coaches, soccer coaches, wonderful husbands, community leaders, business owners who have built businesses that employ hundreds, and some of my clients' cases, thousands of people. I know you're a good person. The problem with these Department of Justice press releases is the government pinpoints the worst mistake we ever made in our life and puts it out there for the whole world to dissect and criticize. In other words, the government owns your life, or at least the story of it. So we can complain, hire PR firms to try to cover it up, write stories, or puff pieces, as I like to call them, or we can take action and demonstrate who we were before, what we've learned from this experience, and what we intend to do post prison, which of course also focuses on what you'll do in prison. We got to take the narrative the government owns, not run from it, pretend it doesn't exist, build it into our narrative, explain we've made a mistake, and demonstrate to others that we're worthy of a second chance and we are capable of becoming more. That inspires people. It wants them to get into your network, and there's no other way. I am convinced there's no other way, whether or not you have a Department of Justice press release. And some of my clients think I'm nuts when I say it's great news you have a press release. When they understand why, they feel better. It forces them to take action, to own and understand their story. At the time, I hated my press releases. It was embarrassing, shameful, but they're there, and I don't run from them. So that's why in this video, I didn't want you to see my mug. I wanted you to read my release, and this is 2 of 4 in total. But people that know me, people in my network, know I did this, I made a mistake, but they can also judge me on what I've done for the totality of my life before, during, and after prison. And taken together, it's not such a bad life. I'm still a good person, irrespective of this terrible mistake I made so many years ago. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the halfway house, which was a second prospecting call I had this morning, get into some of the pros and cons. But for today, read my release, read yours, think about strategies you can put in place to overcome them. As I did, you'll feel better. And moreover, so will your family. I guarantee you. Back soon with more videos. Thanks for watching.